I think the Bills are going to destroy the New York Jets based
Yeah.
on their performance in London. They're coming back off a game in another country, and the Bills have to be, I mean, not just licking their wounds, but
Yeah, they need
licking
it.
their chops, thinking we need to get back on the right track. And
Yep.
here's a division game where they can separate themselves from the rest of the pack. None of the other teams look like they're very good this year, including the Dolphins.
Yep.
Patriots are terrible, and the Jets are in complete disarray and now have an interim coach. But in the last 14 years, I guess it would be, Lubie, since 2010, teams that have an interim head coach come in are 15-12 straight up and 16-11 against the spread.
Oh, well, we know. Yeah, they get the bounce. What do you mean? Dan Campbell, and now he's a good coach with the Lions, even though I really feel like that's his defensive coordinator more than him. But he was a god for like the first 2 or 3 games here. People were like, yeah, the Oklahoma drill. There's nothing wrong with decapitating players. That's a great idea in 2015.
Didn't he have him doing tug of wars and things like that? I thought he was running the Superstars competition. I was waiting for Joe Frazier to get thrown into a swimming pool and jump to the bottom. You're thinking maybe Bruce Jenner comes back as Caitlyn Jenner and competes in the thing. You have her throwing the discus or whatever.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Very pleasant. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest. We got Mike Lubie Lubitz, and a lot of action to discuss here on the program. I know you're not the biggest of baseball fans, Mike Lubie Lubitz, although you do kind of have a peripheral enjoyment of all sports and take a look at it as part of the job of being the leading South Florida sportscaster that you not only are quickly rising to be right now, but in general, I mean, just perceived as overwhelmingly knowledgeable in all sports. But you couldn't help but watch a lot of this action yesterday, and it couldn't have been any more compelling, could it? Two numbers stood out for me, Lubie, in yesterday's baseball action. 2 numbers, very extreme, kind of like the whole political scene right now. The number 1 and 72,000. Okay. And you're thinking to yourself, what the fuck are you talking about, DeForest?
That's literally what I was saying.
And the 2 might be relatable, although they came from very different directions. But the number 1 would be the number of stolen bases that Giancarlo Stanton had in the postseason.
Oh, Jesus.
Which he steals a base in the Yankees-Royals game last night. In fact, without Giancarlo Stanton, the Yankees are probably finished in this one. He goes 3 for 5. They only had 4 hits in the game. So the rest of the almighty Yankee lineup combined was 1 for 25. Giancarlo Stanton, 3 for 5 with a home run, of course, it turned out to be the difference maker, a double, and a base hit. And yet, the number that really jumped off the page was 1. This was a guy, and we talked about it yesterday. I don't think he was running any faster than Verbal Kent was in The Usual Suspects.
You're thinking, can he make it? What was it? Tony was saying he either gets a hit or he's out. Like if it's a ground ball of any kind.
Oh, no, he's not beating out any infield hits. So they don't bother holding him on, and he gets a big lead. And you have to give him some credit for baseball instincts. This was a game that ultimately was a 3-2 decision. And before we got to that point, Stanton steals a base and puts himself on second base, taking advantage of the fact that nobody in their right mind would have believed he would even attempt it. And you're thinking, I don't know if you were betting that, Lubie, maybe, are you dreaming that maybe he catches second base on the back end of a double steal? Because if he was on the back end of a double steal, you know that the catcher, knowing it was Stanton running to second base, probably would have fired to second and conceded the guy that was trying to steal third and let him go ahead and take that base because he had a better chance of nailing Stanton at second on the back end of that thing. You know how that goes, right?
Yep.
Or some big fat guy like Rowdy Tellez is on the back end of a double steal, and naturally you're going to try and gun that guy down because you have a better shot. So that number was significant. 1, it didn't turn out to be a run, but it was a shocker at the time. More surprising than Stanton hitting a somewhat low and away curveball out of the park there for the run differential. And then you're thinking, well, what's the 72,000 with? Is that the attendance, Defo? No, the stadium isn't that big. But 72,000, and I don't know how much attention you pay to this, and I doubt that anybody doing statistical analysis on the 4 postseason games we saw yesterday would have had any interest in this whatsoever. But it stood out to me, Louis. 72,000 was the amount of money in the 50-50 pool at Citi Field in New York.
Oh, geez.
You know how they have that raffle? Now, what are the chances that you're even going to play that? You walk in and somebody offers you, hey, you want to buy like 5 50 tickets for $5? And you're thinking to yourself, go fuck yourself. Stuff those right up your ass. Nobody. Who's going to buy into a 50-50 pool? That's worse than playing the lottery. At least in the lottery, you have a chance to win like hundreds of millions of dollars and make a life-changing score. All right, so if you throw $10 away every week, is it going to kill you? It's $520 a year. You're likely never going to cash even a single dime's worth of winning tickets. So you know how happy you are when you even get like $1 back on those things, right?
Yep.
Isn't that one of the worst gifts that you could get? When
Scratch
somebody
it.
gives you like a scratch-off ticket, a $1 scratch-off ticket for your birthday, and you're saying, okay, so if I hit for 50,000, do I owe you half?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Don't tell them.
Do I even tell you that I won?
No.
And you're happy. You whoa, look at that, man. I got $1 back. So what do you do with that $1? You go right back and bet it again, and then you lose it.
100%.
It's FanDuel parlays to an exponent of 8 zillion. But I did play it once when I was at a Panther game. I was at a Panther game, and the 50-50 had climbed to 32,000. Now, when they post that,
Yeah.
are you getting that number, or are you only getting half of that number?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, good luck.
Is that the total pool they put up there on the board, or is that the amount of money that the guy that wins half of it is going to collect? But 72,000 is an enormous number, isn't it? I know it was a big crowd, and these guys have a lot of juice. You had to have a lot of money to be able to afford the playoff tickets, I would imagine, in New York City. And this was that the first playoff game at Citi Field? Is that possible?
Oh, no. Again, remember, they were in the World Series in 2015.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, but Citi Field, how long Citi Field been around?
Been around longer than 2015.
Yeah, no, it's been around long enough because I've been there, and that had to be centuries ago. Well, would you have played it knowing there were 72,000 in the pool, Lubie? Would you have coughed over? I don't know how much it is. It must be what, like $1 a ticket, and then you get. Did you get 10 for $5? Is that the way it works? I'm not sure. We have to find out the dynamics of and the specifics of how they accumulate and dispatch or dispense the 50-50 pool at Citi Field.
2009 is when Citi Field first opened its doors. So
okay, well, but do you think that's a record number for a 50-50 pool?
it feels like a lot. Like it feels like some real money.
Who else would pay any attention to that? But it was featured prominently. I mean, in the shot behind home plate, and then Lindor's grand slam home run, of course. So it was really the feature of that game. Then they bring in Edwin Diaz again, and I hate to keep referencing the lovely Cameron Diaz, but my God, comes in, walks the first two guys on like, what he walked the first guy on 4 pitches, then he went 3-0 in the second guy before he threw a strike. Ended up walking that batter, first and second, nobody out, a 3-run lead, and the tying run is now at the plate. And you're thinking this is a script that is wrought with disaster. And they end up, he ends up closing it out with a couple of strikeouts, Edwin Diaz. So the Mets move on, and they're now in the National League Championship Series. Their opponent yet to be determined. It will be determined by would this not be a pivotal Game 5, Lubie?
Yes.
Coming up in the Dodgers-Padres series, because whoever wins that game is going to move on. And that was somewhat of a shocking result last night. I don't know if you caught much of that game. The Dodgers just tattooed Dylan Cease, who was pitching on 3 days rest, and they made a big deal out of that. Although he had only got an inning and a third in his previous start, Dylan Cease, who was a pretty effective pitcher for the Padres during the course of the regular season, you would have to concede that he was their ace. Maybe, I don't know, Darvish didn't have an overwhelmingly impressive record, but Dylan Cease, hell of a pitcher, and he's been getting tattooed by the Dodger hitters and didn't make it out of the second inning in this ball game as he gave up a home run in the first inning to Mookie Betts and then got clobbered, and they had to lift him right away, end up losing 8-0. So that series goes to a decisive Game 5. The other two series, Yankees, of course, behind Stanton's great performance, end up winning 3-2 and now have a 2-1 lead over the Kansas City Royals. And the Cinderella team of the postseason right now, is it not the Detroit Tigers, Lubie?
Yeah, what the fuck?
Detroit Tigers now up 2-1 on the Cleveland Guardians, who are division winners. The division winners have always been in jeopardy in the current format. It seems like they really struggle to move on. It's a very limited number of division winners that end up moving on. And here there's a threat that the Guardians will be knocked out in their first round of competition by Detroit, who went out and they won the first 2 games to get into this position in their opening round, and now are up 2-1 over the Cleveland Guardians, and looking very much like a live Cinderella story here in the baseball playoffs. So that was great. By the way, the Milton thing, I don't know. Do we know what the extent of the damage was? It's very hard to decipher. It strikes me, and look, if you're the one person that has a house in some trailer park that has the roof blown off and ends up looking like a tuna fish can, then yes, it's devastating. And so
Yeah.
you don't want to marginalize or minimize any of the things, the effects of these kind of storms. We did have some tornadoes here, which
Yes.
did some damage, Luby. I don't know if you were impacted by that because you're out west there. I don't think they really happened on the east side of town so much, but there were multiple tornado strikes, were there not? Right
there
here
were
in South
multiple?
Florida.
Oh God. Okay.
I
'cause
think there were, yeah. I
there
mean,
was the one yesterday morning, and then Shirley was talking to me about like tornado damage. Like how's that got screwed up? Wellington, I guess got hammered, and I'm like, yeah, but it was 1 in the morning, and I haven't heard about any others, so that calmed her down. So
I saw a couple of pictures of tornadoes, not necessarily making impact, but where you see that little twister thing off in the
yeah,
distance. A couple of people had them. I don't know if they were all of the same one, but
yeah, I've been listening.
wow. I mean, this was. Well, we knew it was highly dangerous, but I didn't really see. I couldn't kind of decipher how devastating it was because they always dramatize things when you're watching, especially the local news, and they'll send that one person out, and they're standing in a puddle and they go, "No, massive flooding here," and then they take the shot of the reporter's boots. And they're standing in what looks like ankle deep water, which is not good anyway. But hardly the kind of thing where you're thinking, whoa, tsunami. Now, the wind, and what was Anderson Cooper doing? Do you watch any CNN, Lubie? And I'm an Anderson Cooper fan in general.
I was watching the Weather Channel. I didn't stay on it, but if I was looking for updates, it was the Weather Channel. The other news outlets tend to like find where it's worse, but that's not the actual median of what's happening. So like the Weather Channel's pretty decent at being honest. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what Cooper was doing. I don't know.
He was standing in Bradenton, which was right.
Yes.
Was that not in sort of the main path of the storm?
Yes.
What was it, Sarasota? What was the exact area of
Sarasota, Bradenton? We're supposed
impact?
To be in the middle of it because Tampa was like the north and Fort Myers was like the south. So like those two areas are like right in the middle.
It appeared that Tampa, I don't know that you could say they were spared, but were spared the brunt of what everybody was expecting because the storm jogged a little bit to the south.
Yes.
And from my knowledge of West Coast Florida geography, isn't Bradenton right there?
Yes.
And Cooper's standing outside looking like he's near a body of water, some part of the Gulf or the bay. And the wind is blowing at like 120 miles an hour. And he's just standing there by a tree doing this reporting. And I'm thinking, get the fuck out of there, you fool. What is the point of that, Lubie? I mean, why does, there seem to be some kind of need for these reporters to throw themselves? I think Nick Wallenda takes more chances. Or less chances than Anderson Cooper was taking last night. But I didn't see the overall impact of it. It didn't sound too good.
My buddy here is telling me, my buddy's in Port St. Lucie. I forgot.
And they got hit with some stuff.
Supposedly they got hit with 17 tornadoes. Like,
oh my God.
Port St. Lucie's not that big, so I don't understand. And he's fine, thank God. But 17 touched down, and they're fine. So it's like, okay, where did they go?
It's weird, though, because you'll see a shot. One of the reporters this morning was outside in a trailer park somewhere, I think in like Fort Pierce or something. I don't know where it was, but it might have been more to the West Coast. And there had been a tornado strike there. And, of course, it always finds its way to a trailer park, unfortunately, where the homes and the facilities are the most fragile and most likely to collapse. And it's always weird because like one trailer was annihilated and the one next door was fine. So very arbitrary. I mean, you can have some really poor luck with that. But hopefully everybody that you know and are friendly with, parts of your family that are spread all over the state there. Mustang has ties to the people in Orlando, knows a bunch of people in Tampa. And hopefully they came out of it okay because it didn't look like it was a pretty scenario regardless of whether or not the damage kind of matched the forecast for how devastating this storm was actually going to be. Swept across the whole middle part of the state and, exited as a Category 1. So What happened to the thing where it would usually dissipate the minute it made landfall?
Well,
That's a thing in the past. I mean, if you look at this North Carolina thing from Hurricane
yeah,
Helene.
well, they go away. Yeah. It dropped from a 5 to a 3, then a 3 to a 1. But yeah, you're right. It used to hit land and then not be a storm at all anymore.
Yeah, okay. Well, we got tropical storm winds here. We might get some gusts up to 70 miles an hour, but in general, the thing's over with. That doesn't happen anymore. All right, we have a lot to cover here on the show. We got into a little bit of the baseball. We're going to get into some NFL football with Jason Cole, Chris Perkins on the Miami Dolphins, and lots of other things coming up on the show. So stick with us. That's Mike Lubie Lubitz. He's at the controls. I'm Jeff DeForest. I'm out of control, and we'll be back with more in a moment. Now that. Would you have played the 50-50, seeing that 72,000, Lubie?
That's a nice number.
It's a big number.
Yeah.
Do you get half of that? We have to find out. Is that the total in the pool? Is that like the pick six pool?
I thought the total.
And you're just trying to get a piece? Because even half of it, I mean, if you went to Citi Field to go to a ball game and you picked up 36,000 on your way out the door, it at least would have covered the chicken tenders and some hot dogs, no?
Exactly. At least two.
Maybe the price of the tickets to the National League Championship Series against either the Pods or the Dodgers. All right, back with more in a moment. Now that. It's 8:17. Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Are you looking to buy your first home? Have you been turned down for a loan? Do you need to refinance or get money out of your home? Call Michael Kodsey, CEO of Choice Mortgage. He's been helping the South Florida community get mortgages for 30 years.
Hi, this is Michael Kodsey, CEO of Choice Mortgage. We have the most competitive fixed rates in the market. Call me 24/7, 561-441-2730. And remember, I don't just work banking hours. To make the right choice for your home, call Choice Mortgage today.
This comes from the great Defo Lama. It's the bets you don't make, the chances you don't take, that can compromise an otherwise incredible life, my friend.
The only way to get your morning started is with Defo, joined by Lubie, right here on The Defo Show.
How did I not take a chance on whatever the odds were on Giancarlo Stanton stealing a base in that Yankee game last night, Lubie? How do you let that go, an opportunity like that? I think he had 4 stolen bases on the season, and as I would imagine, they were all likely on the back end of a double steal. Or the way they described him, literally, you would have thought that he had his leg amputated before the game, and he goes out there, goes 3 for 5, has a big ball game, and I guess to Yankee fans that justifies the what do you think they've paid him so far? About half of that $300 million, $150 million, but big differential there in the game. All right, we're going to get into some stories in the National Football League, and it's always a pleasure to welcome this gentleman to the program. Prolific author. I don't know if he's gotten to the big screen yet with his scripts, but certainly that's only a matter of time if it hasn't happened yet. We welcome to the program our favorite NFL insider, and maybe the leading one in all of the business. Jason Cole joins us here on the show from the 33rd team. Jason, how are you, my friend?
From your word, your mouth to God's ears. Is that what the expression is on script writing? We need to have that happen.
There you go.
So
very nice.
Hopefully, cross your fingers. So
all right, We'll be looking for your name on the big screen. It's always great, right? You're sitting in the theater there, and there in the credits it says written by Jason Cole. Fantastic. All right, what kind of script are we looking at on this Aaron Rodgers, Robert Saleh story? What was it at all a surprise to you that Saleh, Woody Johnson never fires? He's never done it. He's never fired a coach during the course of the season while he's been in control of the Jets organization. 25 years, I guess that spans. There have been many people calling for the heads of the various lame head coaches he's employed. But was this at all anticipated? And then this is not the first time that somebody's lost a game in London, and happened to Dennis Allen. I think the Raiders just left him there. They didn't even leave him get him onto the team plane. But was this a move that you anticipated at all?
I was a little surprised by it. I mean, I'm not surprised that he got fired. I was surprised he got fired now.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, look, I understand 2-3 is a disappointment. And losing back-to-back games, one-score games like that will tick off an owner who has high expectations. And the other part is, there's a little bit of Dave Wannstedt to Robert Saleh. You listen to him talking, which is scary for me.
Yes.
All of us down here.
You got free pizza. I never heard him say that, but he's close. Yeah, there's a parallel.
Yeah, there's some parallels, and kind of the way he talks, the way he kind of babbles a little bit. Sometimes just nonsensical, and you're wondering what the heck is going on. But, hey, we're gonna play harder, and two, we're gonna play harder. Like that kind of stuff.
Nice impression there of Wannstedt.
Yeah, I worked on it a lot. But I guess the thing is, for 2 years, he was basically stuck with Zach Wilson at quarterback and a really great defense. And he's built an excellent defense, maybe the best one in the league over the last 2+ years. And so, how do you judge a guy when he is operating with a quarterback that he didn't draft and kind of got stuck with, who was terrible? You go out and you get another quarterback, he gets hurt after 4 plays, whatever it was in that game, who is now a 40-year-old quarterback, still talented, still can throw the ball, but hasn't played for a year. His timing is going to be off. He's never played with the guys that he's with. You rested him for pretty much all of training camp, kept bubble wrap on him. And I just don't think this was fair. I don't think it was the right thing to do. If at the end of the season the Jets didn't make the playoffs, absolutely understood. Saleh got the keys to the car. Should have improved. Should have made the playoffs. I mean, New England's no good. The Dolphins are in disarray without Tua. You're probably better than the Dolphins anyways, or should be, if you've got Aaron Rodgers and that defense. All these things were put together nicely, and you didn't let him have a full shot. It just reeks of unfairness, in my view. And not that I'm saying he's a great coach, and not that I don't think that there's a good chance that inevitably you may have had to fire him. But I don't think he was given a fair shake, is the way that I look at it.
What would be the reason for a franchise to do it? I get it. Like in college, a lot of the time you'll do it so you can have pick of the litter when it comes to possible coaching candidates. Plus, you have to get a head start with recruiting. But like in the NFL, like what is the pot? What do you gain by doing it now? I don't understand the positive about just cutting him off at the knees now. Like you're putting the DC as interim.
You're asking me to explain Woody Johnson to you.
I figured that's what you'd say. I had to ask.
Like, I'm serious. Like, what kind of question is that?
Doesn't he look like Woody Allen? I mean, could you easily mistake him for Allen if you see him with that floppy hat on?
He used to wear a propeller hat to end the scene. I mean, literally, he wore one of those propeller hats. And I'm like, you're an NFL owner. And then he would try to act big because people told him, don't do that because you're looking foolish. And, he went the opposite direction and is trying to act like there are guys who don't understand what they're doing. Basically, Woody's a rich guy who got handed a bunch of money, who never really earned any of it, and doesn't understand how things operate. Because that's not what he does. And so he's in charge, so he's making decisions. And I guess you can say you're trying to shake up your team and get things going. Like if you're hiring Jeff Ulbrich as your interim head coach, I mean that's Dan Campbell minus about 50 IQ points.
So you're not optimistic that this is going to work out.
I like Ulbrich. I like Ulbrich a lot. And I think he's a tough guy, really great position coach, coordinator, bit of a stretch. But if you're a coordinator under Robert Saleh, who was a great defensive coordinator, I get it. But I don't think this is I just look at this and go, that ain't an upgrade. You may think it is, but it's not.
Aaron Rodgers, naturally at the center of this, and the speculation would naturally be that he wasn't a fan of Saleh's. He claims that he was. It's odd now that journalism depends on having to tune in the Pat McAfee show to find out what's going on. Rodgers adamantly denied that he had anything to do with this and said that he was comfortable with Saleh in spite of the fact that much was made of that incident on the sideline where he shoved him as Saleh was going for the hug after the Jets had finally scored a touchdown. How much, in your opinion, did Aaron Rodgers have to do with the dismissal here? Or I can't imagine that Woody Johnson, who says that he talks to Rodgers all the time about a variety of things, never mentioned to him before Tuesday that, oh, by the way, I'm going to fire Robert Saleh tomorrow.
Well, I mean, let's start with Aaron Rodgers. Not a hugger. It's not. It's not his. If you didn't get that vibe before, you clearly got the vibe that time. I guess Aaron Rodgers right now doesn't trust anybody of any authority around him.
Oh, jeez.
And that goes for football, where he didn't trust, Mike McCarthy, didn't trust Ted Thompson. Eventually got to LaFleur and was prickish about that relationship, or prickly, which is derivative of one or the other. And Gutekunst, the GM, didn't like him, and eventually, as Mark Murphy, the former president of the Packers, said, he's a different kind of guy, different fella. He kind of wore those people out. Well, he gets the Jets, and he's even more powerful. He feels even more powerful with the Jets, so he's going to let that. He directly said to Woody Johnson, yeah, go ahead and fire him, or nodded his head when Woody said it. Or maybe this is the truth and Woody just made this decision on his own. Certainly Rodgers, his body language, the way that he handled himself, did not make you think that he was gung-ho about Robert Saleh. And that is just the nature of who Aaron Rodgers is, number one. And number two, or I should say B, if I'm being like Wanstead, 1B. Number two, it's this is a situation where you shouldn't exceed to the demands of your quarterback, or because he's a temporary guy.
Yep.
He's a hired gun. He's not really leading the direction of your team. And you need to show as the owner that you're not going to just, you're not just going to sit up when the quarterback says sit up. That you have a little bit of backbone here, and you're going to back your coach a little bit and say, hey, look, we're going to get through this because the team is actually playing well. Yeah, granted, they're 2-3. didn't look good in the opener, but then lost these two, one-score games that they should have won. I think he could have easily won. But all the metrics, the things that are serious metrics about whether a team has a chance to be a playoff contender, they're right there. So if I just let the quarterback get into rhythm, get himself under control, this should work out. And plus, whatever happened to, 2 weeks ago when Aaron Rodgers gave the latest version of the relax speech? Right? Like, shouldn't you just listen and relax?
Yeah.
Relax a little bit. It'll be okay. But Woody can't do that.
A guy that looks so relaxed at the point that now people are calling him Mr. Miami Vice. The Miami Dolphins, I mean, it counts as a win. They're now 2-3. You sort of poo-pooed them. We have sort of poo-pooed them at this point down here where it's literally painful. Even when they win, it's just painful to watch their football coming from what was really fun for at least the last first halves of seasons. What are you doing with them in their GM and head coaching situations? Because to me, supposedly the Tua is going to come back. They may be around 500 at that point. Who knows? But it feels like we know somewhat the future of Tua, and that is not the future for the Miami Dolphins. The more and more you see him out there, Daniel Greer did not go and get a backup. They did really not address the offensive line in the way most people would have wanted them to. Where are you with them as a tandem or them individually when it comes to the Miami Dolphins?
I like the head coach a lot. Chris Greer there's some question marks about team building operation. I want to look at the whole thing. I think he's drafted some good players, but he's missed significantly in the key area, which is, offensive line. They're certainly not consistent. They're not alone in that. Right? Picking offensive linemen right now is really hard to do. And it's more about developing offensive linemen than it is picking guys who can actually come in and play, because the college game just doesn't translate to the pro game for offensive line. But one way or the other, they're not better where they need to be. They're not protecting this guy. I think the single most important question you have is, can you really build around a quarterback who is as fragile as Tua is? I care about players. The priority is make sure that their health and wellness is taken care of, and especially when it comes to concussions and CTE and all of that, right? So I care about the player number one. But if I'm building a franchise and I have a quarterback who is prone to concussions, I better have a great backup, a veteran guy who can come in and play, and who can really, this is where you really need the Don Strock type or the Bernie Kosar type, the guy who's really experienced and can come in with ease, run your team, or I'm just cutting bait, and saying, look, Tua, here's your money. We tried to make it happen, but I can't build my team around a quarterback who gets hurt this often. It's too important, and that's a really tough decision, especially now that you paid him. But it's a decision you're better off making sooner than later, especially if he comes back and say 3 weeks into this as another concussion. He's had so many that you've really got to be worried at this point.
Jason Cole, the 33rd team with us here on the Defo show, and I want to talk about Josh Allen, because my first instinct is to peruse the NFL odds when they come out at the beginning of the week and try to see what I think is the most atrociously out of proportion number. So I'm looking at the Jets. This was prior to Robert Saleh being fired, and we know that sometimes there's a little jolt of enthusiasm when there's a new head coach. I'm not sure that's going to apply here. And overall, that's been a winning strategy to bet the team or play the team that maybe doesn't look so good, but they get a new guy in there. I think it's like 16-11 or something since 2010, or that interim head coaches have won their first game. But Josh Allen, I mean, he hits the turf. His head hits the turf in that last outing It looked like an old match at Sunnyside Garden when Gorilla Monsoon would take the Golden Boy, Arnold Skull, and just knock him to the ground with some kind of airplane spin and body slam.
What are you talking about?
Yes, even before your time. Before your time.
I'm envisioning, how hard this guy's head hit the canvas there, and so do we know his status? Do we know his status for this game?
Stop. When was that fight that you're referencing?
It's like the 60s, right?
When was that?
Oh, no, that goes back 100 years, Jason. You know that's how we operate here on the show. Something that people have to look up. We want people to think here. This isn't just some straightforward screaming argument sports talk show. We want them to research this. Those are great athletes I'm talking about. But Josh Allen's status, it's somewhat mysterious for this game. Now, you kind of froze up on me, Jason, there, as Lubie once again is in a position that does not look favorable for this type of broadcast. But anyway, yeah, we're trying to research, and I'm hoping we come back with Jason Cole here because I can't find out. It appears a lot of people believe that Josh Allen is going to be playing in this game against, and they go against the New York Jets in a game that you would have to think that the Jets have a shot. Now, Jason, can you hear me, or because Lubie's internet has frozen on us here? All right, we've lost virtually everybody, so that's not good status. But yeah, I'm debating what to do here, and I didn't even know who the backup quarterback would be for the Buffalo Bills. Who do they have? Oh, Trubisky is their backup quarterback. So as Jason was talking about, at least you have a guy there, Mitch Trubisky, who maybe failed as a starter, but is not completely incompetent. There you are. Are you back with us, Jason? We lost you. Oh, he's gone? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, fine. We'll take a break. We got to go to Perk. But that's
what happened to your new internet?
I get new internet. It did not come yesterday. So I'm still on the same old internet, clearly. Fucking bullshit. But we'll work on getting.
I was enjoying taking the beating from Jason Cole about the arcane reference to. But I mean, did you saw this with Josh Allen?
Yes,
his head really. Yes. I mean, as much as we've seen Tua's head bounce off the turf there, I mean, and we know that Josh Allen's a tough guy, but that can catch up to you. Do we have any idea what his status might be for this game? Maybe Perk has the answer, but we'll come back with that here as we kind of, and it looks to me, no, you're not frozen.
No, I'm here. I'm just texting
right.
people. I'm going to switch the internet, but I'm just annoyed. But yeah,
we were onto something there, Lubie. I mean, the show was picking up a little steam.
I don't know if we were there. He was berating. He's berating.
I was trying to think of a way. I mean, this guy's head. Did you see this play? Where
yes, I don't understand how he came back in the same game, just plays later. If it was any other, it's just weird.
Don't they have people in a booth now? The NFL, in reaction to the James Woods thing and any given Sunday, don't they actually? And their own medical chief surgeon or whatever, chief medical advisor, what was a disgrace? Remember on this concussion issue? Very much like Gary Bettman in the NHL saying, "Well, it's not really a problem for us, right?" But these guys are getting hacked in the head with sticks, and they're being crushed to the ice with these thin helmets that they wear. And he's trying to deny that concussions are an issue. You got guys, all of those goons committing suicide should have been alarming enough. But, yeah, I mean, there's always been this denial thing. I thought now the NFL had taken as part of its protocol the concept, and they've done this, right, where a player gets up, he looks a little woozy, like he's been knocked out, and instead of just shrugging it off, I'll never forget the announcers alluding to Ricky Bell when he got his head crushed. The running back, Ricky Bell, and they go, "Hey, look at that, he had his bell rung."
Yeah.
And you talk about marginalizing the impact of an injury. But I have not seen what his status is. That would make a big difference.
Oh, he's going to play. What do you mean? He went back in the same game. They didn't put him through concussion protocol. He went into the 10th thing. But he didn't do any of the stuff that they're supposed to be. It's weird. The NFL is supposed to be so progressive on this fucking thing. And outside of Tua, they don't give a shit about he's the only player that they take concussion seriously.
It's crazy, right? I mean, with Roethlisberger, how many concussions do you think he had? With Out anybody actually saying, hey, you know what, man? How many fingers am I holding up here?
Exactly.
And when he says 5, they go, okay, get back out there.
Yeah, that's 4. Oh, that's close.
You were within 3.
You missed the other one. Get the fuck out of here.
All right, we're going to continue here. We're going to persist in doing this thing, and hopefully we won't have any more technical problems, but we will have Chris Perkins joining us here, and he can get into some of this stuff about the Miami Dolphins and maybe some other things around the NFL. Are you a believer in the Chiefs at this point, Lubie? They've won every game, but
they haven't looked great.
Haven't been overwhelmingly impressive. The Ravens, everybody wants to make the Ravens the team to beat. They're now 3-2, but you talk about dicey. They've escaped a couple of times, and on one occasion they narrowly were defeated by that toe that went out of the end zone. But are they overwhelmingly impressive? I don't know. And then the Cincinnati Bengals. Remember, we had Gurgles last week. We were unable to bring you the trivia challenge this week because I guess have they already started the renovations there with Gurgles Golf Course? Shula's? What was Shula's?
Because of Milton. So I presume that being a golf course with a business, they had to decide before they knew what was going to happen, close or stay open. And I guess they just went safe and closed, even though the weather looks better now than it's looked in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
It looks really nice.
Breezy, sunshine.
It's not even hot.
I can't wait to get out there. I really can't. I mean, as much as I enjoy doing this, I can't wait to get outside there and get on the walk of life today and do some contemplation about what the future of all of these teams actually is and who I'm going to put my money on this week. I did get a couple of plays, though, I wanted to pass along to the people here from a guy who's been red hot. Our man Troy West, he has a service, and people subscribe on a weekly basis, like $29 a week. He goes 9-0.
Jesus.
Yeah, he sent me the thing. 9-0. He hits all 9 of his bets. And so he had a couple of plays. He's been especially hot on college football. He likes Utah. I think they're laying 6 points in their game, and Washington State this week.
Okay.
So watch for that. And then, and this is great, Sheldon G giving out a horse play here on the show, which he has he owns a horse that's going to run at Delaware Park today in race number 6, the 10-horse Majestic Eagle. Are you inclined to believe that Sheldon G's horse is going to win? He says he's going to romp.
He says he's going to romp, yeah.
Romp, air. Now, we've heard this before.
I know, obviously. You're never like, yeah, I think my horse is going to lose by 10 lengths.
Exactly.
It's
usually when a guy tells you, I don't bet a dime on that horse. He doesn't have a shot. That horse jogs.
Wins, yeah.
And then you find out that the guy bet like 20 grand on it. I can't imagine what kind of number. I mean, he wouldn't necessarily want to influence the odds that much. But you went frozen up again, unfortunately, Lubie, with whatever method you're using here to transmit this show. It's quickly being transmitted into the toilet. But Sheldon G, our good friend Sheldon G out of Las Vegas, is running a horse today, Delaware Park, Majestic Eagle. And he says this is going to be, Air Canada, my friend. They're just going to be out there by 20 lengths and win. And never looking back. So hopefully that'll happen. All right. I love the smiling pictures. Lubie, you really ought to start a series of your frozen images here on the show. And hopefully we can get out of this thing in a graceful fashion.
Fine. I go to break and I was going to switch over to what will now work. But
okay, let's do that. All right, and Chris Perkins is due to join us here. So we'll see what happens with that as we continue here on the show on a Thursday morning. Back with more in a moment. Now that.
The time.
Is this horse going to win? We're obligated to give out these horses.
Yeah,
right?
no, he put it there. I would love for one of us to put some money on it just in case it wins, because Sheldon G's never done
Maybe
that.
we can talk Mayo into it, huh?
Yeah, that's it. Let make Mayo be the
he sits there with the phone and goes, I had 5 to win on that horse. I want to tell him to step it up.
Exactly.
All right, back with more in a moment. Now that.
The time.
How about 50, Mike? It's 8:44.
Here, let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and 1,000 natural shocks.
What could that have been about except
Gambling.
to hedge or not to hedge?
The modern day odd couple, Defo and Lubie, are on now. It is, of course, the Defo Show.
Welcome back to the show. Good to have you guys with us, and hopefully we'll stick on the air here and be able to operate smoothly. But you talk about a smooth operator in the old Chardate thing. That's this gentleman who is going to join us right now. And, of course, he is the distinguished columnist for the Sun Sentinel on the Miami Dolphins, and knows all things Miami Dolphins. We welcome to the show the great. And probably, I mean, you talk about a guy with kind of, I don't know, what would you say? I mean, as cool as George Clooney. It's Chris Perkins who joins us on the program right now. Chris, how are you, my friend?
Gentlemen, no storm damage, so I'm living the good life, man. Hopefully, y'all came out okay.
Yes, sir.
No, nice and smooth over here. You know, the weird thing. Now, they don't do this at newspapers like they do at television stations, where they send the sports guys out to the most dangerous parts of potential impact of a storm. I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Kim Bocamper was just starting out at CBS. Didn't really have the status there that some of the other reporters might have had, even though he was a well-known professional football player and a former first-round pick. And I'll never forget seeing a rather large Kim Bocamper. Since he's trimmed down and gotten in shape, as a lot of these guys have post-career. But he was perpendicular to the ground on the Fort Lauderdale beach. And they go to him, and his hair is flying, and, water's hitting him in the face, and he had to get, it looks kind of choppy out here. I tell you what, I wouldn't go outside right now. And then you're thinking to yourself, well, then what the fuck are you doing outside?
Exactly. Why are you outside?
Yeah, no, they don't make us do that. I never... I never understood, doing that. I understand the value of being out there, but wow, just the kind of the contradiction when you're telling people don't go out here, and you're putting it on TV, and people are like, that kind of looks like fun.
Exactly.
It doesn't work.
They had Anderson Cooper like in a boat in the bay under that the Sunshine Bridge or whatever that is in St. Petersburg. I'm thinking, what is this guy doing out in the ocean there? That's absolutely crazy. All right, let's get to a sea of stuff here. We had Jason Cole on. We ran into some technical difficulties. We were talking with him briefly, and I don't know how much attention you had to pay to this. It is a division rival, so to speak, and obviously an arch rival here with the expatriates from New York and the number of Jet fans that we see showing up at Dolphin games, and that's been a big rivalry over the years. What were your thoughts about the Robert Saleh firing, and how much do you think Aaron Rodgers, if anything, had to do with it?
Oh, my goodness. This goes back. What was that game where they had that look with each other where, like, Saleh was trying to dap him up on the sideline?
Yeah.
I don't know, like after a score, and Rodgers shoots him this look. And
were they playing the Titans?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But you knew that there was big trouble, as if you didn't know before when Aaron Rodgers went to where'd he go during mandatory?
I think he was in Egypt somewhere.
Yeah. Right. And so he finds them, and those two guys just didn't seem to get along. And no matter what Aaron Rodgers says, we know that he runs that place, right? That's why Nate Hackett is there as the offensive coordinator. That's why Alan Lazard, his boy wide receiver, is there. Definitely Aaron Rodgers was made aware of this, and definitely Aaron Rodgers gave his stamp of approval. I don't think Aaron Rodgers had the final word, but you don't bring in a guy of the magnitude of Aaron Rodgers and then just spring this on him. Hey, we fired the head coach. No, you have to run this by Aaron Rodgers at some level.
Is Aaron Rodgers a shot fighter? Is he showing those kind of signs? I know you were a boxing guy at one time in your career. Is that a fair reference? 3 picks in this ball game certainly didn't help the Jets' cause in a game in London, a game that they, by all rights, should have been completely out of after the first half, and somehow miraculously were driving for what could have been a game-winning score before he threw that third and final pick. Questionable whether or not there should have been an interference call on that, but I mean, he doesn't look like he's capable of just overcoming all of the Jets' offensive inefficiencies and being the guy that they traded substantial assets for and then paid a boatload of money.
Yeah, I think the Jets' problems go beyond Aaron Rodgers, right? It's systemic failure, and I don't know. Don't they have like the longest playoff appearance drought in the league, like since 2010 or so? Yeah, so this is systemic. This isn't just Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is the latest example of how poorly run the Jets are. We know their issues with the offensive line last year and continuing into this year, right? We know they can't keep a head coach. Look, they have some defensive talent, right? With Quentin Williams and Sauce Gardner. Breece Hall's a good running back. Garrett Wilson is a good wide receiver, but this is not the Dolphins have more talent on their roster than the Jets. I'll put it that way. So Aaron Rodgers it's not like he's on a talent-laden team that is has years worth of good management at its back. I mean, this team is pretty much a dumpster fire, and we're seeing that.
Okay, that's a perfect segue into our conversation about the Miami Dolphins. Where Lubie's been calling for the head of Chris Greer for the last several years. I think you're on board with that. And then, obviously, there's still a verdict to be rendered about whether Mike McDaniel is an NFL caliber head coach, as good of a guy as he seems to be, and as understanding as he is of the needs of the media. So he's always going to sort of find favorable viewpoints being written and said about him, because he does. He seems like a guy that you'd be happy to root for and love to see succeed. But and we've talked about this, and I think you've been more critical than most about the idea, at least addressing the notion that McDaniel is a man that's going to be here for a long period of time, bringing the Dolphins to glory. And certainly if he doesn't do it this year, it's going to be Jerry Glanville time, right? Not for long in the NFL. You would think that he would be very much on a hot seat. So where do you see that whole dynamic right now after that Thriller in Manila type victory, another boxing reference, that they had over the lowly New England Patriots?
Yeah, here's where I see things, and here's where I've always seen things. Mike McDaniel is the one most responsible for the Mike McDaniel era. It's not Chris Greer. It's not Tua. It's Mike McDaniel, because he has built this offense. He has built this team. And I've told you guys that Chris Greer is merely Instacart for Mike McDaniel, right? Mike McDaniel makes the shopping list, and Chris Greer goes out and gets the groceries. And so, and Dave Hyde gets on Chris Greer about this, and I agree 100%. Chris Greer has no vision. And when your GM has no vision, then your franchise has no vision.
Yep.
Chris Greer goes with whatever the coach wants. So you're going to have one system under Adam Gase, a different system under Flo. Well, those were the tank years. A different system under Mike McDaniel. And the problem is, it takes like 2 years to turn over a roster to get it to where a coach wants, and you only have a 3-year window. You need to be like Baltimore, right? With Ozzie Newsome, where you knew that you were going to run the ball and play defense. And that's what you were recruiting to. That's what your free agents specialized in. That's what your draftees specialized in. And when you come across a Lamar Jackson, well, now that's the finishing piece. But these things are going to be the staple of your franchise. It's how you build, and the Dolphins don't have that. And so now you have Mike McDaniel with kind of trying to short circuit hard work, right? We'll get some high-priced veterans. Give me Tyreek and give me Teron. We don't care about injuries. We don't care about money. We're just going to throw these guys together, and we're going to see that it works. Well, it doesn't, because in 2022, you were one of the league's most penalized teams, right? Now we see again, you're one of the league's most penalized teams. We saw them last week, guys. It looked like they were worse than against Tennessee as far as the discipline, the penalties, and the execution and the drop passes. So it looks to me like the Mike McDaniel era is an era where you tried to kind of trick the system. Hey, we're going to outrun everybody. We're not going to put in all the hard work that everybody else does. We're going to do the player empowerment thing, and we're going to outrun everybody. Where our injury-prone players are going to stay healthy, Tua and Armstead and Mostert against all odds, and we're going to win a Super Bowl. And it's like, no, Mike McDaniel, that's a bad plan. You need to change your plan, and Chris Grier, you can't go along with that plan. I see Mike McDaniel as having his fingerprints all over it, and he's the one most responsible. But Chris Grier is culpable because you can't let the head coach run the organization.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, look, we've had in the past where there's contention from management and coaches. You can't have that, but you can't have it this, like, you saw the Patriots once Pioli was gone and it was definitively Belichick. Their draft sucked. And they kept winning because they had Brady and he was able to get the best out of this guy. But they were always at a disadvantage because their drafts were just an abomination. And he's as good as anyone at understanding what talent is. You want the coach to work with the GM, but the GM is supposed to be the GM. And I think it's almost a cop-out. And it's why Chris Grier keeps getting a pass because, like, what do you mean? He shrugs his shoulders. It wasn't me. It's like, then what are you doing here? And that's my question is, like, and we were talking with your former cohort at, I think, multiple papers, Ethan Skolnick last week. And some people talk about all the time, like, continuity is a good thing when you're good. Like, continuity when you're bad is just throwing money down the toilet. So to me, a lot of people are saying, they'll go get a GM. It's finally done with Grier, but then you keep McDaniel, and it's like, then aren't you doing the same thing? Like, don't you go and get a GM? Let the GM get his coach. And sadly for Tua, I guess you'd keep him because he's under contract, but you got to go draft a quarterback, right? Like, like, where are you with this organization? Because a lot of people aren't where I'm at, but to me, like, you keep piecemealing it time and time again, and I think you keep ending up here.
Right. Well, I'll go in two directions here. Number one, you remember that I wrote before the Kansas City playoff game, if Mike McDaniel doesn't win this, his seat should be extremely warm.
Yes.
And people were, what the hell are you talking about, Perk? Okay. So here we are on that. Also, and then just as far as Chris Grier, it's again, this is a guy who has no vision, but I just have to give Mike McDaniel most of the responsibility, most of the blame here. The quarterback situation was created by Mike McDaniel, and you've got Tua here who is injury prone. The backup situation was totally botched with Skyler, who, we don't know how good Skyler is, but to me, the big thing here is Mike McDaniel is hard-headed and he's rigid. And again, I like and respect Mike McDaniel, but he remains a young head coach. And here's what I mean. This system hums with Tua out there, but it stalls with Teddy Bridgewater, with Skyler, with Tim Boyle, with Snoop Huntley. And so he doesn't change the system when a backup quarterback is in there. He expects them to have the same quick reads and same quick delivery that Tua does. You can't do that. You've either got to change the system or you've got to have a quarterback who can run the system like Tua. And that's a failure on their part. Like, how do you botch the quarterback thing? And here's my other thing, Lubie, on quarterback. I don't know where you stand on this one, but to me, here's the dilemma. That next year we know we're going in with Tua as the starter. What do you do at number 2? To me, you're still trying to win a Super Bowl. So I want Joe Flacco, Andy Dalton, Tyrod Taylor. I want a veteran. If I pick a first-round pick, I might draft Mitch Trubisky or Josh Rosen. I'm not turning this team over. I'm not having Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle run patterns for some guy who's never played a down in the NFL when I know that I have Super Bowl aspirations. So from that standpoint, from where we sit now, I would probably say draft your backup quarterback in the second or third round and see if you can kind of develop him. But I just think a first round pick, if two of those down next year, if and when, I don't want to turn this over to an unproven rookie. I would rather turn it over to Flacco or Andy Dalton because I'm still trying to win a Super Bowl.
One more quick one, if you don't mind. Chris Perkins, our special guest here on the show. And we were talking about this the other day. One of my favorite things, situations to be in when I was doing a lot of talk radio, what was the so-called anatomy of a bye week, where people would call in and go, "Yeah, you know what? The bye comes too soon. It's really going to ruin the season." Or, and the next guy would say, "Oh, my God, can you believe this? We don't have a bye till week 13. The question would be this. Will you be on a beach sipping a cocktail in St. Martin this Sunday, Chris Perkins? Tired of talking about Chris Greer and his failings and the possibility that McDaniel isn't the man, and whether or not Odell Beckham Jr., a lot of people thought that his insertion into the lineup and his eligibility to play was going to be a significant factor in this game against the Patriots. And what's lost on a lot of Dolphin fans is that I thought the guy was in bounds when he caught that touchdown pass from Brissett at the end of the ball game, which would have sent the Dolphins reeling to a 1-4 record. And whatever optimism is out there about Tua's return and the bye week and how much they can shore up their chances of winning games, the conversation would have been in an entirely different direction. So, what will you be doing during the bye week, and how significant is it?
Wow. Well, what I'm going to be doing, the reason that I'm not on video right now is because I have not showered.
You are in St. Martin.
I'm planning on going to Miami Beach as soon as I get off this call.
Nice. Oh,
Early morning Bloody Marys. Nice.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then hopefully I'm going to play some golf today. Hopefully I'm going to play some golf tomorrow with Adam Beasley.
Nice.
So,
very nice.
Football Network. So, so that yes, I do plan on being on a beach somewhere. As far as the bye week, it happens to come at a good time for the Dolphins, but really, I mean, I think the only bad time for the bye week is when it's really late, like week 12 or something like that. I will tell you this, and Defo, you tell me if you agree with me here. I wrote a column saying that September is kind of the new preseason.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And that's right. And I say that because you guys know in the preseason, the starters only get work in the joint practices. It's the youngsters who play in those preseason games. And so as a result, when they're out there for the season opener, the starters, that's the first time that they're really playing extended time together in game situations, right? With a clock and a huddle and a coach in the, in the helmet, and you got to line up. Like, you only do that in joint practices. So you remember the old days where you had that third preseason game, the dress rehearsal, the starters are going to play the first half and into the third quarter. That was valuable. And so I think that really what you're seeing now is teams kind of figuring things out in October. So, yeah, I guess that to get back to the bye week, you could say that it's a good time for the Dolphins to reset. That, okay, now you've kind of seen, what you can do. Can you rely on 41 carries for 193 yards? Can you rely on, can you correct these penalties? Can you rely on Jonnu Smith, who hopefully you've discovered in this offense? Figure this stuff out. And so I guess you could say the bye week comes at a good time for the Dolphins. Tua gets, it's a game that he doesn't have to, well, he has to miss 4 games, but he gets another week to recover. So I guess you could say it comes at a good time, but, really, I don't think there's necessarily a bad time for a bye. Again, like I say, unless it's way too late in the season.
Well, we know this. There'll be a lot of jokes about how the Dolphins can't lose this week from the disgruntled fans who have already thrown in the towel on the season. Chris, always a pleasure. You go have some fun, my friend. Thank you so much for taking some time to be with us. We didn't mean to hold you up from your plans for the day, which sounds spectacular. So we know from your past that you can take advantage of these kind of moments, and we thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
That's right. I'm just trying to be consistent.
There you go. We appreciate it.
That's what Lubie's looking for, stability in the organization. All right, thanks, Chris. Always a pleasure, my friend. Chris Perkins, the columnist for the Dolphins for the Sun-Sentinel, which is still very much, going strong. I guess what? People click on online. Dave Hyde's still well read.
They have a nice online.
Nobody physically gets the paper. I got my post today. It came a little earlier than it has been the last few days. But,
there you go.
There it is, Lubie. We have to get out of here. We'll be at Batch Southern Kitchen, Fort Lauderdale. That's always a great spot. And we'll be there at 1 o'clock with Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. And I will join you on a variety of other platforms. We'll be on No Filter coming up here in just a few minutes. And then later on, new thing, a gambling show called License to Steal, which is an extrapolation, kind of a condensation of and a combination of what we do during the week on Bury Your Bookie. But we have some excellent handicappers. We'll feature 4 of them, including the professor, later on today. Bleacher Brothers, outstanding site, and you can go there, get all kinds of information and podcasts and shows. And looking forward very much to talking to the boys today at 4 o'clock on the Bleacher Brothers platform. So we'll see you later on right here on South Florida Live. And, of course, Let's Eat South Florida, the Facebook page with Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. Until then, for the sometimes frozen Mike Lubie Lubitz, you're like a fish stick on this thing. Every now and then, you just go in there and you're looking for Mrs. Paul. Just you look like DiCaprio in the Titanic when they finally ended up in the ocean. But we apologize for the technical difficulties, and we'll see you next time as we leave you know that.
The time.
It's 9:06.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.